go ahead and say we can go ahead and pass things along to Toni so we can get started proper. And I'll be here in the background until we're ready for question time. And if you just let me know if you need anything, Toni.
Hey, thank you, Adrian. You've been remarkable and fabulous. Hey, everybody. I'm staring at this green dot that represents everybody, but I think I can see like a bunch of people too. So like, hey, greeting you from West Philadelphia on Lenape land, where I am growing lettuces on the roof. Happy spring. Um, got to do some shout outs before getting the poetry underway. And first shout out absolutely goes to Newport News Public Library. Y'all have reinforced the homie bond. I mean, I've been gone for a few years and still you reached out and like hauled me back in to do this reading for National Poetry Month. And that's just so 757. So thank you. You've been amazing. Thank you, Adrian, for making it work. He'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A afterwards. I want to love on the 757 Hampton Roads in toto. All those birds, I miss the birds and the marsh grasses and all that water, the bay, the ocean, the creeks, the rivers. There's so much water. The sea level rise, to Poetry Massive, the cornbread, just it's all beautiful. Big shout to Nellie Kate. She has interrupted installing her thesis project to collaborate with me on this and has brought so much joy to it. Thank you, Nellie Kate. Love to everybody out there who's putting seeds in the ground and starts in the ground and growing stuff, getting in the soil. To fam, hello fam, fam. To all my dear ones, to the fully vaccinated, to the nearly vaccinated, to whatever to be vaccinated yet. To my Aunt Eloise, who came to me in in a visitation last weekend, and she was the person who really midwifed me into my book life. So that was a blessing. Welcome. Happy National Library Week. Happy National Poetry Month. An aside, which isn't really an aside, please don't sleep on our nation's poet laureate. Her name is Joy Harjo, Harjo. I taught her work for years. Her work will break and restore your heart. She is in her second term as our nation's poet laureate, and please do yourself that favor. Dedication. My reading is dedicated to Hugh Harrell III. Blackety black, black, black. No matter what you were talking about, you could have been talking about ice cream, right? And Hugh would bring it back to like Black people and ice cream. He is a native of Hampton Roads, Virginia, of the 757. So much family there. He co-founded the Wyandotte Association for Red Black History and Culture with a brilliant librarian, Anita Harrell, who texted me and said she's stuck on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, which is gorgeous this time of day. So it's not a bad place to be stuck. He was a singer and a co-founder of Legacy of Wyandotte, an a cappella vocal ensemble that I enjoyed so often, who performed music and stories of the African diaspora, brought in the red black history of Native American culture, African culture. Brilliant and amazing historian who transitioned in 2019. That still puzzles me. You know how some deaths you just kind of roll with. I wasn't able to at the time, but this is helping, and this reading is in his memory. All right. So this may be my granddaughter's first poetry reading. I'm not sure. My granddaughters are 5 and almost 6 months. So in case they have to go, the first poem is really short, because I understand how, like you can be 5 and almost 6 months old and not particularly want to be Zooming. So, okay, so this first one is called Halloween Not Haiku.
One sec.
A black pointy hat sails sideways through the air like a spooky thought. Okay, so Halloween is my favorite holiday, and I'm happy to share that with y'all. Okay, second poem. You know how some people have been super helpful during the pandemic? It's just like, oh, and this is how you make this, and this is how you like build a boat so you can sail away or whatever. So, helping people with their creativity. Well, this has been happening for hundreds of years. Now we have YouTube, etc. And I have done some of that too. But there was something about getting writing prompts in emails during lockdown that was just a little bit too much for me. So I wrote this really short poem called Use Girdle and Scabrous in a Sentence. Use girdle and scabrous in a sentence. Don't tell me what to do. That's a poem. Okay. This next one is a found poem, which I've had for so long. I don't remember where I sourced it, but it's really juicy and personal and massive, like a poet who's tackling a subject like the universe or love wants it to embody all that stuff, but it's usually out of our reach, even though we're surrounded by it. There are found poems everywhere waiting to be found. I mean, just, if you think about, if you like put your hands on a letter somebody sent you and you just like see this piece of the letter and you can just like pull it out and go like, God, that's a poem. Or even an awkwardly worded ad, like they're everywhere. So I found this one years ago and I'm bringing it to you. It's called Slice of Laniakea Supercluster in Supergalactic Equatorial Plane, which is the caption below the image. The colors in this slice represent density, with red for high densities and blue for voids. Individual galaxies are shown as white dots. Velocity flow streams within the region, gravitationally dominated by Laniakea, are shown in white. Galaxies are not distributed randomly throughout the universe. Instead, they are found in groups like our own local group that contain dozens of galaxies and in massive clusters containing hundreds of galaxies, all interconnected in a web of filaments in which galaxies are strung like pearls. Where these filaments intersect, there are huge structures called superclusters. These structures are interconnected, but they have poorly defined boundaries. An international team of astronomers has defined the contours of the immense supercluster of galaxies containing our own Milky Way. They have named the supercluster Laniakea, meaning immense heaven in Hawaiian. This next poem, Cardigan, is about dudes, about men. I still want to write the poem. I've wanted to write this poem for a long time about how a lot of guys propose marriage, like especially when there's a ring involved, where the person who's being proposed to is like super freaked out because the person like is the perception, like the guy who is asking the person to marry them is really stressed out and is doing like really peculiar things and is really fidgety, but won't tell you why, right? So you're just like going, what's wrong with this man? And you're concerned, right? Anyway, but this poem happened before that one, but it's random like the one that I want to write, and it has cliches. So there's a reference to in the poem to Kevin Costner's cliches from that great baseball movie Bull Durham, where Costner is coaching the character played by Tim Robbins, and is saying things like, okay, you gotta like learn your cliches, like I'm just glad to be here, and like it's a team effort, you know, and that kind of stuff, right? So it's a great movie. And then there's a reference to the virtuoso Itzhak Perlman, from his rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, which he played, you know, on violin before a Mets Giants wild card playoff game at Citi Field in 2016. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but you know, I shouldn't say of course, but the Mets lost. Okay, so Cardigan. We got a right to punch this punching bag. I got a right to walk the middle of the street. You right, I see you. Sleepy boarding, eyes closed, piano keeps it quiet. Why play blues? I got money. My mama loves me at least as much as my wife. At this stage, no more, no less. I walk this blues around, big hands on a little chance, small mug of coffee. Got the credibility I need, some sound off the game. Tip my hat, astonished, I know enough to sing. I played small ball for a month, switch hit, used what my grandfather taught me about inscrutability at the plate. Nobody knew, heck, I didn't too, and they gave me a raise. Now that I'm rich, I can't move my hips. These cameras catch everything, I swear. The kitchen island's even lost. What's not to philosophize? Each park's got its tunnels, back rooms, visionaries, pop-up breezes that waft fly balls. When Itzhak Perlman put that Mets jacket on, well, I knew right then about this poem, that I could spend time pulling Costner's cliches out of my mouth into some other music, out of my wrist toward a paper horizon, out of my twitch to the feet of poems. Grandpa was a poet in the underneath, out in the open, descending the 3 porch steps in his leather-soled shoes. Gravel rolls as he backs out the driveway. No radio, just his musical heart, and now mine. What can't you do with that horn? Soul woo springs off a running board that disappears when you step off. What's driving besides rhythm? Tempo kiss itself. I hear the grin behind the horn, embouchure steady, joking. Billy's bounce jumps out the radio. Are they twinning in pinstriped double-breasted jackets? Pomade. Today is homage, is wink the eye, is housebound on a spring day melancholy. Come to the door, it's a ways till midnight. Dogs still up, making their sounds, bodies speaking like ours do, groaning as they settle into their sit, making peace with the dark. Save it up, you'll need it. Don't sleep on this. Heed my words. When rain blows sideways, it will enter your home. Don't see it till next week. Open the blinds, smoke links on the grill. For a moment, you're convinced you're hurting. But you know if you cried, someone would take the mystery away to make you feel better. Okay, this one is for Hugh. Threshold for the Revolutionary Ancestors, for Hugh Harrell III. And not everybody could be readily ID'd as revolutionary, but everybody was because they came here Black and died. Not everybody could be ID'd as revolutionary, but everyone was troubled because they came here Black and died, troubled by passing, troubled with passing, troubled in passing, in being passed over. Not everybody tonight under curfew can be ID'd as revolutionary, even with Zuckerberg's okay, even with new money for facial ID, even with corruption high as Indiana corn. June dawns, sets late, sky wants us romancing in its after curfew smooth. White screens just looking, just like always, always being since March. We stay home if we're old enough, sneak out if we're young enough, but this time at gunpoint. Some people paid to lie, point weapons at us on our screens near the bus stop against a car. Not everybody in a blue uniform can be ID'd as enemies of a revolution, but the work it takes to bust out that knee, breathe, street black revolutionary helps your flowers grow. It's a sleep aid. God love you more. Stick it out. Revolutionary ancestors live for our wins. Shoulder us forward. Pandemic. One of the riskier pandemic behaviors I've indulged in since September is resuming my swimming practice at an indoor pool in central New Jersey. So let me shout out my Newport News YMCA pool crew, especially the spirits of Mimi and Deb, who have passed on since I moved north, and everybody at Aqua Zumba doing the line dances in the pool. And love to the Scotch Plains Y for keeping us safe with all the protocols. And I will forever wonder about all those people in the parking lot doing Pilates in February on the ground, on their mats in February when it was 25 degrees. Y'all are hardcore and I am not. This piece is called Swimming with Van. Entering the pool area at the same time, you would have to hate Black people not to notice that he looks magnificent in his swimsuit, and I do not. At 30, Van ran through Washington, D.C. with 20-pound weights in his hands. I consider that now as he slips into his lane and warms up. I grab a tattered blue kickboard, motor to 9 feet. We finish at the same time. I've swum 8 laps, he's done his 30. Even when Grant, my swim instructor, worked me through every move in the free Chick-fil-A swimming manual, flip turns, dives, the butterfly for God's sake, even for Marine Reserves Grant, I made 11 laps and that is all. Now I adjust my breaststroke, allowing gravity to pull my upper body down into its dip and stroke in lieu of tensing these January muscles against the surrender. Good that Van and I are separated by a lane. I would not want him to misunderstand. Okay, Taji Bean. If you're still in the Zoom, I've got an old poem, and this is the one that I told you about yesterday that's kind of like a story. It's about this big day visit to Manhattan, your hometown, with your mom and Uncle Asa when they were little. It's called New Jersey Transit. Holding a green pencil, the New York Public Library stamped in gold. I wonder what kind of mother I am to encourage gift shop shopping. And what did you like best about the Met? I asked my dazed children on the 114 bus. We've rounded the bend past the skyline and I could hardly pull my gaze from it. My daughter answers, I liked the Egyptian stuff and where we ate. My son replies, conflating the institutions, the gift shop. Hearing that and holding this pencil, I figure maybe my West Coast children can be from Jersey too, paying up front for Manhattan, hustling butt for the bus, then heads rolling, nodding, jerking in Jersey Transit slumber through Union City and Springfield, clutching paper bags with New York inside, having had enough. My littlest one makes his way up the aisle, seat by emptying seat, sits in a standing fashion behind our driver. We're almost home. His sister frowns at her watch, then at me. How many more minutes? Then, can I pull the cord? They both pull the cord. The driver brakes just past my mother, weeding the front lawn on her knees, glowering up at the bus. Why hasn't she brought my grandchildren home? She shouldn't have them in the city after dark. Signature bags collected, we climb down, thank you, brightly calling, jaywalk at dusk to the cul-de-sac. Run into grandmother's wide flung arms. I am a good parent, I think. We have sharpeners and pencils from the New York Public Library gift shop. My son did not lose his life climbing onto the shrubs that rimmed the roof garden at the Met to get a better look at Central Park. I'd said, climb up and look at how big, before seeing I could lose him in an instant. The lovely guard took a pointless minute to reach us. They can't do that, she scolded, in terror. Still, my vision holds suited men on glass walkways in 8-story windows at Grand Central Station. Look at the people walking in the window, the kids exclaimed. We'd never seen anything like it. I can't believe I took them all over New York like that. Like, that's amazing. Anyway, okay. One day. 3 more poems. Okay. So these next 2 are from Ground, my book. I love this book. They did such a great job on this book. It's all, like, you've seen it. You have it, probably half of you, more than half of you. Hand watercolored. Anyway, it's back just in time for Earth Day. Anyway, you have to scroll to the bottom of the page. I need to say this, and click on store. Let me pause briefly here to mention the book project, all about Black folks in the garden, that I'm doing with Margaret Gray Bain, Juliet Harris, Jackie McClendon, Kendra Hamilton, and Hermine Pinson. It's in progress. It's luscious, yummy, like all the good things about Black people and gardens and stuff. So hang in there. We'll get it together and bring it to y'all. Okay, so this one is called Yang. I wrote this poem as the masculine energy kind of tiptoed through when I was going through menopause, and my outlook started to just like shift into balance. Yang. Through some utility of measure, a season grows long and bright in a familiar heart. Its untended garden on its own clock still holds earthworms, turning, twisting toward coming heat, living on tip to tip, blind and safe. Is a world a new thing when energy shifts? I wear it all. Men's eyes, tall violet irises on the north side of my house. This giving day, gift of fierce purpose to mine some kind of gold, to take some territory by storm. The next piece is called Owls Creek Begs the Question. Owls Creek is in Virginia Beach, just behind the Virginia Aquarium where I used to work back in the 90s, early 2000s. And that's where I relearned as an adult to listen to the natural environment. I had gotten away from that, and everything was there. Owls Creek is where I was introduced to the Anthropocene, our current era. Owls Creek begs the question. Nature left to itself will end in a tangle bent on succession. The giving way of a meadow to trees after scores of seasons. This outdated sure thing had no parallel life before it got this hot. Yes, it's hot. Azaleas lurch in ugly error. Robins hop across a February stage, then shiver into March. Heat waves pull water up independent of tides. The creek, kinetic as a scherzo, wants to flood, spill into meadow, making marsh. So, which species live where and for how long? If there's a planning commission, then what is the plan? Sad thing is we can't leave it alone. The meadow won't survive either way. What need determines our allegiance? The water or the trees? Okay, last one. We made it. This last poem is a self-care gift that I had to give myself, and I give to you all in case you need it. It's called Be That Beautiful Dreamer. I'm the feathers in your feather bed, and I admit it, I cannot save you from this futon. I will no longer fake your comfort. Collapsing, not surrendering a twinkling moment, I resign from your will. I'm the dollars in your paycheck, and I implore you, I am never enough for America, but I will always keep you warm. Buy yourself a bed. It is not a luxury. You want beauty in your life? Be that beautiful dreamer. Awaken new spiders to bite you. I'm a woman inside a smile. I offer you succor. Retrieve the visions stiff in gray corners, wheezing. Bring them to your lovely, layered bed. Thank you all. Yay. I'm going to turn this back over to Adrian and thank Nellie Kate again for the ambiance and energy. And it's amazing that y'all came. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Toni. So we do have time for questions. So right now, I know everybody's mics are muted. So, and we do have quite a few people in there. I believe Zoom should have an option to raise your hand or something of that sort. Or if you want to type a question into the chat, I can go ahead and read it off. And you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Taking everybody back.
Here we go. Good job, Mommy T.
Woo! You think so, really? Like, I know you're going to critique me, like, seriously when we talk tomorrow, but thank you. I appreciate your being with me through this whole thing. And hopefully we'll do some poetry together. Thanks, Bean.
I love you.
This
I love
was
you
excellent.
back.
Okay, let's see. We have a question here in the chat. When is your new collection coming out?
That's the question that every artist loves to hear. And let me say this. I don't know. And sooner as opposed to later, because I now have support to get said collection or collections out. Have 1 million poems. They are currently being digitized by my dear friend, Kimberly Rosa in Nipomo, California, who is doing this because of love, I think. I can't imagine why else she would do it. So the organization is in process, and then the publisher will magically appear. Any publishers out there, you're invited to do your magic, and we will have more collections. I wish I could say it was next week, but hopefully it'll be really, really soon.
Let's see. Let's see. Do you find writing about certain topics difficult?
Absolutely. I didn't include a lot of dark pieces today because of the general audience, but yes, there are pieces that set me back. There are pieces that start out really light, and I think I'm writing about one thing, and then it just slides into something very difficult and that I have to kind of swim underwater first from, but then back to. So yes. And one of the hardest things to write about, I think I mentioned during the reading, are the big, big, big topics, like in the found poem. You know, if you sit down to write about the universe, you could be sitting for a really long time. So much has already been said, and said so beautifully, that saying something in a new, different way can be really, really challenging.
Okay, let's see. Do you think of yourself as an eco-feminist poet?
I try not to think of myself, except when I'm like buying great sheets for my bed, which I really love. But an eco-feminist poet, sure, why not? Yes, I'll take it. Truly, let's do it. Sure, sign me up. Nothing about it I don't like.
All right, let's see, scrolling down a bit more, and here we go. The experience of Cardigan was like listening to jazz or viewing an abstract painting. Can you talk about the format of this poem?
I don't know if you've read Frankenstein or if you know much about Mary Shelley and Frankenstein's monster, but it's kind of like that. Cardigan came to me as fragments of probably 5 or 6 different poems. And none of the poems to me were working on their own. So I pulled pieces from them and, you know, kind of did one of those things, a bunch, until it flowed. And there was some rhythm to it and something that felt like I was honoring the men that I wanted to honor in it, and that kind of energy. So yeah, that was it. It was really looking through some old stuff, not super old, maybe like back 4 or 5 years or something, up to present, and making Frankenstein's monster from it. So shout out to Mary Shelley.
All right, and how did you learn to read so beautifully?
Thank you for the compliment. I don't know, but I need to just give props to my parents, because in the home that I grew up in, I was an only child. And so those of you out there who either have only children or are only children know that, like, the spotlight and the headlights are like always on you, right? It's just like, so it was important in my family for my diction to be, you know, pretty terrific, and all of those things. And I read a lot, and there was always music in the household. So like my mother was heavily into opera, heavily into show tunes, and people are enunciating, and that, I would say, just my home environment, and then eventually listening to going to the theater and listening to to actors and artists and other poets read. And like my main person, when I think about enunciation and just like being musical and precise, is Smokey Robinson. That brother, like if you go back and you listen to Smokey Robinson sing, it is incredible how he can croon and enunciate so beautifully and clearly at the same time. Nat King Cole does that too. So those are like my main influences. And again, thank you. I love to read.
Let me just make sure that nobody's... Okay. When did you realize you were viewing the world through the poet's lens?
I don't know if it came as a bolt out of the blue. When I was a teenager, my mother made sure I had magazine subscriptions. So at the time it was 17 magazine, and Essence had just been founded, and Ms. And between the three of those magazines, usually there were poems. So as an adolescent, I was seeing poems in print, and I started to seek them out. I went to the library because that's one of the places where I have church, and just would come home with stacks and stacks, and I would, just photocopy, and that's when I started writing. But I was hearing those voices. Everything was ringing true for me. Nikki Giovanni and and June Jordan and Adrienne Rich. It was just all real. It just felt real. I feel like I came to Langston Hughes later, but the women were just right there. Okay, so this is pathetic that I'm not remembering her name. But anyway, okay. That's, I guess, and that's where maybe the lens started, and I gave myself permission. I'm seeing this Lucille Clifton from, yes, absolutely, Lucille Clifton. She came to me a little bit later, but when she came, she just arrived, just like bam. Emily Dickinson. Who in the world could forget Emily Dickinson? And her just like being, like off somewhere, in Massachusetts, doing her thing all slant. Incredible. So yeah, so with art, it's about giving yourself permission to do it. And once that slid into place, it just stayed. And so my kids were raised by a poet.
Okay, and let's... I have a really hard time disciplining myself to write. Do you have a particular time and place to write?
Thank God for Toni Morrison. Bless her spirit. I read a couple of things, but the first time I read this lengthy article, she was interviewed in the New York Times magazine section. It was a long time ago. And she said, look, like I write when it hits me, and I don't make myself write if I don't want to write. And I just like right here. So yeah, I know that when I write first thing in the morning, it's different than when I write later. But whatever. No, I don't have it. I'm not disciplined with it. Once it happens and it's on the page, because I usually write longhand, pencil, right? Then I'll, transcribe it and start messing with it or whatever. So yeah, I wish I could share tips with you, but I need tips personally. Like anybody has tips, taking tips.
Now let's see if I understand this next one. It says, can you speak about place in your work?
Especially, well, the Owls Creek piece really speaks to that, and quite a few of the poems in Ground are rooted in place. I was married to an architect for a long time. And through our alliance, I really felt like I got connected more to place. I mean, there are places in all of our pasts that fully resonate for us. I mean, for me, it's the Jersey Shore. And you know, and everybody's got that. But when you're at a particular place and you can hear it, you can feel it, you can taste it, and you can bring it in and let your molecules kind of be out there with it, then you know, just that breathing, just that breathing in that ecosystem, whether it's in a subway car with too many people or at a lake, you know, it's terrific. And so it shows up in my work, sometimes, mostly inadvertently, I think. Sometimes I try to bring it in, but I love just being in the moment. I really don't like to multitask. I like to just be wherever it is that I am, so that the placeness of it can flow. That's one of the things that's so great about digging in the dirt and having gardens and planting things and stuff. And now that I'm learning more about trees and how they communicate underground, and you know, and all the fungi and all this other stuff, it's just like, just get me to a forest, you know. You guys, like, it's almost 7:00 on the East Coast. Let me not try to be so East Coast centric. You got more, Adrian?
Oh yeah, let's see.
Oh yeah.
Kind of interested in the answer to this one. What is the relationship between your writing, gluten-free pastry, and dreams?
My writing, gluten-free pastry. I spend very little time with gluten-free pastry. I do like full fat milk, you know, real butter, you know. So if indeed I'm indulging in gluten-free pastry, which I do not, you know, like, I'm not hating on gluten-free pastry, gluten-free anything. Next time I am with gluten-free pastries, I will check out what happens with my dreams, because there could be a thing. And if there is a thing, I will make that connection gladly, because I do keep a dream journal. And we'll get back with the gluten-free pastry piece. That's interesting. Yeah, I do take a probiotic. Help me with the gluten.
Let's see. Do you have a process for editing your work?
Oh gosh, a process. Yes. It's not, my process is not doing very much of it at one time. You know, light edit, then get the heck away from the poem, until it calls again, which is one of the reasons I have poems that are like 25 years old, right? Because you know, it's just like Marie Kondo, those suckers, like, you know, kiss them goodbye, get them out. So yeah, so I will revisit a poem a million times. That, you know, it's like, I need therapy around this, truly. But yeah, just, you know, just kind of get out of the way of it. And, you know, when it calls back, come back to it, mess around a little bit again. There's a poet named Audrey Lord who wrote a poem called Coal that I used to teach. And she issued a couple of versions of it years apart, and only changed maybe like 5 words and some punctuation. But man, did that change the energy of the poem. It was a masterstroke. So I'm for doing that. I learned a lot from the fact that you don't have to do one thing just once. You can mess with it and then come back and go like, wait, this is my poem. Kiese Lehman just reissued his book of essays that only came out like 5 years ago because he's like, I need to edit this. So yeah, process of, by now you're knowing that I'm not a big process person. Don't use a lot of recipes either.
Have you ever done prose poems?
Yes. I love prose poems. And let's see, I would say that Cardigan is a prose poem because it's just like globs on the page. So yeah, I love prose poems. And to me, like a good prose poem, you just don't want to even lift your eyes from it. You just want to just read it. Just read it straight through. And I love that. Yes. Love prose poems. I think there's some in Ground. I'm not sure. Wait, yes. Roundness Carries, prose poem. Yeah. 4 more minutes, you guys. It'll be 7 o'clock.
Oh, okay. We got to wrap things up soon.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you dance a lot?
Yes. I need a new hip. I will dance more when I get it, hopefully later this year. But yes, I always have. One of the reasons that I like Philly is because during the pandemic, there was this off ramp off of, I think, 76. You come down and you wait at the light, and there was a big billboard that just said, dance more. And I thought, well, I live here.
All right, so it looks like that might be all the time we have for questions. Thank you very much, Toni, for being here today. Thank you, Nellie Kate. And,
Yes.
and thank you, all of you, for being here. This is going to be, like I said earlier, this is being recorded. So if you missed any part of it, or if you want to watch it again, we will be, it should be uploaded on the Newport News Public Library's page in a couple of days. And I guess I have to plug the library. If you're in the Peninsula area in Virginia and 757, we'd love for you to stop by. We are opening to the public again starting next week. And even if you can't visit the Newport News Public Library, just support your own local libraries by all means. And if I believe that's all we have for tonight.
Thank you, Adrian. You're a boss.
Thank you.
Write poems. Thanks, Nellie.
Great job. Great
How
reading.
many knows?
Bye.